Hey my little sunbeams, it's me, Icarus, and I have some questions. Before we get into the next chapter, don't worry. Do you guys want to be called sunshines or like sunbeams? I have no idea. Please tell me, please comment, it helps me want to make these. And also, thank you so much for my 2 subscribers. I did not think I would just get any traction. I'm so happy that somebody's enjoying these. So let's get right on to the fic. Chapter 4 of And How Does That Make You Feel? By Rosyredlipstick on AO3. Summary. I'm a supervillain and you're a therapist I kidnapped because I need someone to talk to, Ello. Or, where Hades is the ruling supervillain of the world and Nico can't really deal with that. But you know who could help him? Dr. William Solace, expert psychologist who may or may not about to be kidnapped. You locked your window. Will paused and pulled the phone away so he could stare at the unknown number label before he brought the phone back up. Nico, is that you? Hello, Will. How are you doing? Great, good to hear. Are the introductions now over? Good, great. Now let me in. How'd you get my cell phone number? Will asked, toning down his music, but making no move to get up. You gave it to me the night we, met, remember? I gave you my office number, Will reminded him slowly. Oh. The word was loudly lacking any trace of confusion. Well, it wasn't that hard to find. You should be more careful on who you give your cell phone number to. Yeah, I wouldn't want some guy to call me at 8 o'clock at night and demand to be let into my house. That'd be the worst. Anyways, why didn't you just use your normal tactics to break into my apartment? Nico let out a frustrated sigh into the phone, and he only sounded a little pissed. Like I said, you locked your window. Not just locked it, you double-locked your window. Will, I can see the padlock from outside. Will grinned and cocked his head to the side. Are you outside my window right now? Of course not, Nico dismissed. I'm outside your door right now. Will huffed out a laugh and cradled his phone to his cheek. How do you even know that I'm home right now? Is that a joke? Nico questioned. Will, I can hear you shitty singing along to that same shitter pop song. Will cut himself off mid-lyric. I'm not singing, he insisted. He crept over to the door and peered through the peephole. Will jerked in surprise, as Nico was staring straight into the peephole, looking much, much better than he had any right to. His lips were pink and parted, and his dark eyelashes fawned across his rosy cheeks, and he had a large bag weighing down his shoulder. Are you planning on letting me in? His voice echoed in his ear, and he watched Nico's sweet lips curl around the words. He cursed to himself quietly and attempted to calm down his rapid heartbeat. What, so you can eat my food and trash my apartment? Will's voice was a little breathless and light. He swallowed and willed his cheeks to turn down a shade. He opened the door and blocked the doorway, staring Nico down. Is there something you need? He asked playfully, cocking his hip out so he could lean against the wood. Nico gave him a look and pushed past with an exaggerated eye roll. Where's the pizza rolls? Or mac and cheese? I've had a terrible day. I need to stuff my face with empty calories and saturated fats. Freezer and pantry, but you already knew that. Will followed him into the kitchen, secretly pleased and only slightly alarmed with how comfortable Nico was manoeuvring around his apartment. He threw his bag on the couch and made a beeline for the kitchen. Want to talk about it? Nico groaned, pulling the large pizza rolls out of the freezer. Preheat the oven and we'll talk about it during/after I've stuffed my face with fake cheese and pepperoni. Will did as requested and pulled a cylinder of chips from the shelf. You want these? They're the gross flavour you like and they're going stale. Nico made grabby hands and a low, whining noise. Will shook his head and tossed the chips over. How's Sunshine doing? Will asked, hopping up onto the counter and letting his beak dangle. Nico's cheeks coloured a nice pink. He's, doing great. For a stuffed elephant, I mean. How's Soren? He's wonderful, actually. Will kicked his feet against the cabinets. He's sitting on the tallest shelf of the bookshelf in my office. Nico cocked his head to the side. I kind of forgot you had an office. Will laughed. It's a nice office. You should see it sometime. Nico hummed under his breath as he put the pizza rolls in the oven. Maybe I will. He pressed the timer button and stood there for a moment, absorbing the heat from the oven. Nico turned to him, a bit awkward, with his hands stuffed into his back pockets. The cylinder of Pringles was tucked under his arm. Want to binge watch Cupcake Wars on Netflix with me? How do you know I have Netflix? Will asked, his voice more teasing than serious. Nico leaned forward with a tisk. Oh, Will. He shook his head in mock pity, and he tucked a stray curl behind Will's ear before he could lean away. Or worse, lean in. You shouldn't be surprised when I know these things about you anymore. I should be probably more worried about the interest you've taken in me, Will decided. Nico patted his quickly warming cheeks and nodded with the faint curl of a smile. Yeah, but you're not. Will really wanted to deny that, but honestly, he just couldn't. You seem really comfortable here, Will remarked. Nico reached into a closet he somehow knew held the blankets and pulled one out. Will tilted his head. Do you come here when I'm not home? Nico shrugged, and Will could spot the secret tension that was held in the moment. On occasion, he answered vaguely, settling onto Will's couch with the container of chips. You have HBO and Game of Thrones is back on. Nico went quiet, and his body was too still as Will thought over his words. Will thought about how nice it was to see the funny little notes Nico would leave, or coming home to the dishes done and dinner warming on the oven. Okay, Will accepted, nodding. He thought it would feel more strange or alarming if he ever realised someone came into his apartment without his permission. Instead, Will realised it felt a lot warmer. What happened today? Will asked once Nico had settled in with his food. Nico sighed and gave him an obvious look, popping a still steaming pizza roll into his mouth. Have you even been outside today? Flipped on the news? Checked Facebook? Nico raised his eyebrows. Have you contacted the outside world at all today? It's my day off, he defended, and my internet was down for a few hours this morning, so I've been listening to music. Nico tipped his head forward dramatically before unzipping his large bag and pulling a glossy magazine from the top. He tossed it over to Will so he could look at the front page. Before Will could react or even glance at the cover, he went back to angrily ripping the rolls apart and dunking them in sauce. Playboy heir to evil fortune goes good, Will read off. He observed it for a moment before asking, Why in the world do they think you're a playboy? Nico groaned. Will, that is totally, really not the point. Someone leaked to the press that I'm moving out because Hades picked his life of evil over his own son, and the fact that calling me a playboy doesn't mean anything. But do you agree with the title? Will inquired, leaning forward in mock seriousness. Nico rolled his eyes and pulled out another magazine, a different one but still splashed with Nico's face across the cover. The article is even worse, he muttered, all about how Hades is losing another kid and all my secret meetings I've been having with the good guys. You've been having meetings with good guys? Will asked, a bit distracted as he flipped open the magazine to discover even more photos of Nico. Nico huffed. I met with Frank, my sister's boyfriend, once, because she wanted me to pick up a few things from his house. But it was far, so we just met halfway at Starbucks. Apparently, that was enough for an entire news article. But other than that, no! The closest good person I've been meeting with on a regular basis is, well, you. But you're not mentioned in any of those magazines. And honestly, I'm pretty sure I would be able to persuade you in the other direction if I needed to. So you don't count. Hey, he protested before stopping to think about it. Probably. He watched Nico unload more and more magazines out of his bag, a lot of the magazines having multiple copies. How many did you buy? He questioned in confusion and a bit of alarm. I bought out all of the magazine booth on the way here, Nico answered, distracted as he flipped through another magazine, his pizza rolls going untouched. All the other bags are in the van. Bags? As in plural? He eyed the large, heavy black bag that Nico kept pulling magazines out of. You shouldn't read that stuff. Most of it is fake anyway. Who cares? I do, Will. Nico curled up the magazine so he could grip it tightly. This is my image, Will. This is what people are going to see me as. If I ever want to do something with my life, to be something other than the son of an evil ruler, then I need to protect my image. No one wants a rich, spoiled playboy to work for them. To emphasize his words, he waved around one of the magazines, The large yellow letters reading, "Lover boy sees the light. I am not my father's son." Nico leaned back, worn out now. "I would never say that," he muttered softly, his gripping hands wrinkling the glossy paper. His fingers lightly traced over the bright letters as he sighed. Nico faced Will, a small smile in place as he repeated Will's words back to him, but only laced in disbelief. "And why the hell do they think I'm a playboy?" "It's probably the skinny jeans," Will remarked before he could stop himself. He fought off a blush at Nico's sharp, knowing gaze. "What? They're practically a sin. I'm surprised you didn't get holy water flicked at you on the streets." Nico seemed to perk up at his opportunity and gave Will a low smirk. The air almost instantly thickened as he spoke. "Are they, Will? Are they truly sinfully tight? Do I need prayers? Tell me something." Nico bit his lip and leaned in, his eyes heavy and heated. "Do you pray for me?" Will's throat was dry and he struggled to swallow. "What?" Nico dropped his eyes and his eyelashes fluttered against creamy cheeks. "Do you pray for me?" he repeated, his voice smooth like silk, but heavy like granite. He said words with deep meaning, like though his own person's sermon. "After all, with all the sinning I seem to do, it would seem almost rude of you not to." Will took an even breath, and it was hard to breathe evenly, like this wasn't affecting him the way it obviously was. Will caught a quick spark of humour flash in Nico's eyes, and he had to sigh to control himself. "I don't discuss personal religion with my clients," he answered. His voice was breathless, but thankfully didn't crack. Nico's face broke then, cracking into a wide, wicked grin. The heavy air was temporarily lessened, and Will jerked back, not even realising he was leaning closer to the other boy. Nico's grin read of smug flirtation. "I thought I wasn't your client." Will shook his head and felt Nico shift closer to him. "You're not my client," he told him, lying to himself a bit. "Right," Nico dragged out, picking back up his magazine and holding it up so Will couldn't see him. "Slightly illegal things, got it." Will pulled down the magazine so it wasn't blocking Nico's face anymore. "You shouldn't read that stuff." Will pulled it from his hands gently, and Nico only resisted for a second. "Come on, cupcake wars, remember?" Nico sighed and fell back onto the couch. His abandoned pizza rolls were still slightly steaming on the coffee table, and he pulled them onto his lap. "Yeah, okay, but you better not talk, especially during the final round. Hazel always tries to talk, and it drives me crazy." "I wouldn't dare," Will told him, but stopped to think about it. "Actually, maybe I will. It could be sweet payback." "Payback?" Nico questioned, pausing in the act of choosing an episode. "What in the world have I done?" Nico D'Angelo. Will sighed with humour. "If talking during TV is what drives you crazy, then you drive me absolutely insane." Nico smiled, and it was a happy sort of smile. Pleased. He was pleased with himself. "I drive you insane?" Will dragged his eyes over Nico's sharp pink lips, currently wrapped around the edge of a pizza roll, and the little drop of sauce that smeared around one corner of his mouth. He eyed that sinfully tight jean that he loved to see on Nico, and his pale skin and flushed cheeks, and the curled ends of his hair. "Yeah," he answered finally, and his voice was only a little weak with emotion. "You drive me insane." Okay, that was the end of chapter, I think it was 4 now, of And How Does That Make You Feel by Rosyredlipstick. This took me over 2 days to record, and I no longer only have 2 subscribers, I have 20, which I do not understand. Thank you so much, my little sunbeams, for subscribing, and if you haven't already, maybe do that. Yeah, so it's now Pride Month, which I love, obvious reasons. And then, yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't get an episode out yesterday. I was busy procrastinating. Yeah, I don't have a really good excuse for that. I love procrastination. Yeah, sorry. And I'll try and get one out next week, but school, so that sucks. Well, please comment, it means a lot to me, and I hope to see you in the next one.